Hi everybody, this is Margaret. You've stumbled onto my channel at Margaret Pennard on YouTube. I'm a historical fiction author and eclectic reader, and today we have a huge whopper of a Wednesday wrap-up. So welcome everybody, and this might take a while. Yes, most Wednesdays I will do a Wednesday wrap-up, and typically it'll be like 3 or 4 books. And this time it's like 11. I just had a slow bit for a while and then jumped up. So we've got a lot of books. Some are for the Black Authortuber Readathon, which I am hosting this month. Some are cookbooks, and we'll explain a little bit of that reasoning. And some are other Readathon books and fall into that category. So welcome all of those who are watching live or on the replay. If you're new here, subscribe. You get a lot of interesting things, lots of nonfiction, lots of random things. I'm not even going to go through the books that I read for research today, even though there are 2 more of those. So I don't know. You'll find a little bit of everything here on my channel. So welcome. The Readathon is to read Black Authortuber's books for Black History Month in the US. So if you're unaware of that, I'll pop the link in the chat. We've got a spreadsheet. Basically, it's very low-key. It's just when we find Black Authortuber's books, we pop them into the spreadsheet with the YouTube link for the Authortuber, the buy link for the book, and anyone who wants to read that book can sign up and then maybe find a buddy. So I've read 3, and we have decided on a date for our buddy read of The Reformatory, which is going to be scary, but I'm down for it. My first Banana Reef due, and that is where you can find that 2024 BAT Readathon. You can also see past videos on the playlist on my channel. So let's go into those first, shall we? Or let's say hi to the chat first. I put a silly poll in the live chat as well. So let's say hello to Leslie at Booksters and Purrs. She says, happy Wednesday. I hope you're okay in the flooding in Southern California. Misty Houston dropped by, but she's got carpool duties, so she will be back. And I said she'll definitely have time to come back. And Leslie says, no flooding in my area, but I keep getting PS warnings on my phone. Ugh, yes, those really loud, blaring ones. I recall those. Sorry. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to have to pull this up on my e-reader and figure out how to make it work with the background. Do we have a virtual background today? Because I'm in a new situation. And you may have seen it during the last live stream. I have had it facing a different way. There's too much going on in the background and it's too busy. So we're just cutting to the virtual background for today. So my first Black Authortuber Readathon read. Oh, I can't stay on the cover. It doesn't want to stay on the cover. Little contents. Come on. There we go. All right. So the first one is, there we go, Snapshot of Love by Skye Winter. And this is a short read from our friend Deidre Ann Anderson under her pen name. It's part of the Pride Mountains series. And what I would say about this one, it was very enjoyable. It gave me flashbacks to like when I read romances in the 90s. So if you know the feel of romances from the 90s, my favorite author from that period was Elizabeth Lowell, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Like the steaminess, the progression, the pacing, the vulnerabilities of the heroine, and the themes that are highlighted. So very good. Skye Winter, recommend for short, steamy romance read. It's a small town photographer heroine and sexy lumberjack vibes. Let's go with that. So then I've got on Kobo, Leslie Penelope's book. Is it going to stay on the cover? Yes. The Cupid Mix-Up. So this is one of her earlier books, a very cute cover, and it's a very cute short read as well. It's part of a series that have Cupid in the title, and I loved the writing in this one. The tension between the couple was very good. It was clash as well as timing unsuitability, but they immediately started pining for each other. We're only in the woman's point of view, but I thought it did a really good job, and the ending was really like abrupt, but that's because it follows on with like 3 others in the series, and gives you a little peek at the supernatural element, because the Cupid in the title is actually an indicator of supernatural beings, perhaps gods, as Cupid would suggest, meddling in our human affairs. And so I'm excited that that is something that's going to develop more in the other books of the series, but good hook for the first one. And then the third Black Authortuber Readathon was from my friend Tiffany T.L. Russell, and hers was out recently. It's called Speed of My Heart. I don't want to have it dissolve there. There we go. By T.L. Russ, which you can find in the description or in the spreadsheet. Definitely in the spreadsheet. And this was another short read, because I'm trying to get to as many Authortubers as I can to put their names out there and promote their brands and have people read their books. So this was, it's part of the Walker family series. And what I had to say about this is that it was definitely on the nose, enemies to lovers. People who love that trope will love this book. It also has a cop involved in the romance. So not a lumberjack, but a cop. And it's set in Georgia and definitely appeals to all the Southern stereotypes and like the family that you want, the TV family that you want to be your family. So it's very sweet. I can definitely see the setups for many different couples in this family, in this small Georgia town, being explored in the rest of the Walker family series. And it has sort of, because of that big extended family and other couples in the world, it has this feeling of like a soap opera, of kind of like it'll go on, and like different people will come in and come off, and different actors and actresses will portray your favorite characters. But yeah, The Speed of My Heart. Love the witty banter. Tiffany's great at the banter. And yeah, enemies to lovers, enemies before they know who each other is, and then like fighting against attraction. So very, very classy, very good. So those are my first 3. I got ready for this readathon by having 3 ready, and then 3, oh, it's gonna dissolve, 3 on deck. So I'm consulting my sheet and, getting my 3 on deck ready to go. But let me take a breath and explain the next section. Hi, Cat Paw, procrastinating. Welcome. We love procrastinating. So the next section is going to be cookbooks. And you might think, well, why is she going into cookbooks? That was not planned. That doesn't relate to the readathon. No. But you know what happened in January is that I had like a 3-week slump, like major down energy, major negative self-talk, major depression stuff. And it was really hard to get out of that and feel like I wanted to do anything. And when I did come out of it, shout out, thank you to Barrett Laurie and the karaoke on the 21st. It was like the turning point that I can point to. I realized that what was keeping me, one of the things that was keeping me in that yucky cycle was like bad eating and just bad diet. And that's something I haven't really paid attention to much in the past pandemic era years. And so I used to be really into cooking, really use that as a creativity. What's the word for like when you have a wrench and you open up a valve? Is that the right word? A valve for creativity? Anyway, but lately I haven't, and I've sort of defaulted back to like Trader Joe's and, starchy things, because that's so great for someone who's in a depression. But I saw a certain cookbook at a local indie bookstore and thought, oh, I remember that. That was a blog 10 years ago. And then I went into Powell's and saw a couple more. And I just thought, okay, maybe if I re-engage with feeding myself healthy foods and be more thoughtful about that, that will be a good leg to the stool of healthy self-care. And so you're out there kind of thinking, oh yeah, I used to think about that, and now it's just mindless eating. You've got a friend in me. But we're going to turn the ship around, right? We're going to do better for ourselves. So the cookbook haul includes My New Roots by Sarah Britton. She, I think, is, I don't even know. Is she an American? I think she's an American who went to move to Denmark and started a whole new life. But this is a decade ago, right? And so she wrote a cookbook based on her blog recipes of experimentation, like many food bloggers have done, inspired plant-based recipes for every season. And so it's a lot of considering what's local to you, what's fresh, what has nutrients that will nourish you, and not what corporate America wants to sell you. And I am a big fan of that approach to eating and cooking. And so not only did it give me a good memory bump of back in the days when I read food blogs and tried stuff, there's also healthy recipes. So I looked at a lentil soup recipe, but ended up going with a different cookbook, and it was delicious. I'm going to have one of the leftovers for lunch today after this. But one of the ones I'm going to go try next is this one, and it's just beautiful. Oh, my virtual background is messing it up, but it's parsnips. I think I'm going to use carrots. And it's just roasted with herbs and spices and pomegranate seeds. It's called roasted parsnips with pomegranate glaze and za'atar. So, do something nice for yourself. Make your food look pretty. And be mindful of the act of eating and what you're putting in your body, and how it can be almost a sacrament. A good thing. So that was great, and I'm excited. As you can tell, I read the book and I put in sticky notes. And I'm going to check the poll, because the poll was about which books do you read more often? Black Authortubers books or cookbooks? I may be alone in reading cookbooks, because I know not everyone does that. You have to be a pretty big nerd. So we have 2 votes for Black Authortubers books. All right. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear that is the case. And maybe I'm just alone in the cookbook. But I'm going to recommend that to people, because especially if you're sort of flailing, and that might be a nice focus for a bit of a change, a bit of a shift as we shift seasons. Esty Houston is back. Here's the poll. Yeah, don't read cookbooks. I find my mind starts wandering and mishaps happen. That's hilarious. Okay, so that's the first one. I will say a success. The next 2, I went to Powell's and was just browsing the section as a nice break from being at home. And one is called A Good Day to Bake. And I went wild with stickies on this one, so you'll see there's page flags all the way down. Loved it. And so I have made something from this one already. It's called A Good Day to Bake by Benjamina Ebwehi, who is a British food. I think she sort of stumbled into food styling, and then also being a presenter on food shows and stuff, and guest. So this is a bit older as well. I think it's maybe 4 or 5 years old. Yeah, 5 years old. And what I had to say about this one, let's see my notes. Oh, yes. So not only is she British, and, the reminder that Black people bake. Every beautiful photograph in this book has, the Black hand in the picture. And it's lovely, because I don't think they're very represented in this scene. It's very, World War II home fires, white ladies baking. So I loved that the author is Black British presenter and wonderful baker. And what I made from this, and you can see it's the one I left notes on, is the store cupboard cake. Okay, keep me in the frame there. There we go. And it's like the one on the cover, but it's also a really moist, rich chocolate cake. Super simple, don't need eggs. Need espresso powder. So I loved it. It was really good. So can recommend my first recipe from A Good Day to Bake. And I love the fact that it's mood baking. So the premise behind the organization of the book is her favorite recipes that really like, if you feel like making something or you feel like you need a shift, you need a mood lifter, like consider, and here are her categories: herbs and tea to spice things up, stone fruit and berries, vegetables, the best of beige, which just means like things that aren't necessarily pops of color, but are workhorses in the kitchen, the spice cupboard, or of course, chocolate. And so that's the chapter I chose to go with first. So that was great. I love it. 5 stars. And I had to get these cookbooks because I cut down on my cookbook collection and I didn't have anything that was basic. They were basically all research cookbooks into 1820s, 1840s British food. So like not really helpful today. Okay, so the last one is called Yemek. It's recipes from Istanbul. And this is also a little older. I think it's out of print now, but I found it used at Powell's and love it. It's got a recipe for simit, which I have found elusive and I really want to try. It's got a recipe for mücver, which I definitely have on my list because I love those. And there's like different versions that aren't Turkish from different cuisines that would also work, but like having the actual Turkish recipe. And I've tried a recipe from this book. It is the lentil soup one. So there's 2 to try, and I was going to compare, but I haven't done the other one yet. So I just have my notes here on page flag for mercimek çorbası, and I in my head remember kırmızı mercimek çorbası because red lentil soup, and it looks really good here. It's really good in my refrigerator as well. And yeah, the reason I particularly identify with recipes from Istanbul is that I lived there for a year. You might not know this about me, but before I was in DC, I went and taught English in Istanbul for a year, learned a little Turkish, made some friends, I met lovely people, and did a lot of traveling while I was there in Istanbul and a lot of eating. So eating definitely helps you learn the local language, I will say. So that was like a burst of nostalgia. That was a mood lifter because there's a lot of happy memories from my being in Turkey. And I will just note that I was recently tagged in the Istanbul tag from Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff because he has also lived there and he lives next door in Georgia now. And so maybe we'll make another recipe from this book to accompany the tag. I think that might be really fun. So stay tuned for Turkish food in the Istanbul tag in the future. 5 stars. It's written by, I think, a Turkish woman, a German woman who lives in Turkey, and like another German or another type of foreigner who lives in Turkey. So they like collaborated on the recipes and the culture, and they have people on the street that they ask for their favorite recipe for things. And I just really love, like, it recalls all those things I remember eating there. So it was really great. Okay, let's see. Pat Paw says, I've got a cooklet available for free on Smashwords if anyone is interested. Cooking with poisson, but you can use any dark green veg, spinach, kale, broccoli, etc. Oh, poisson is a green vegetable? I assume it's very common in Mexico then? That's really cool. All right, I will definitely look that up. Margaret will want that. Yeah, with the theme of cookbooks. Yes. I just want to say yemek. Yemek means to eat. So it's not a hard title to find either. Like you'd think to eat, isn't that going to be a common title? Apparently not in Turkish. Yemek? Yemek. Okay, we're having fun in the comments. Excellent. Okay, so now I've got the other categories. So like I said, I'm going to take a break actually. There's a lot of talking. Like I said, I'm not even going into the research reads that I have for my current work in progress. I'm going to leave those aside because I'm almost finished with the third one, and then I can present all three at once. And that'll be a really nerdy wrap up, let me assure you. But for now, the other Black authors. So this one is a library book. It was a possible runner-up in the Patreon book club voting poll, but did not win. But I got it and read it anyway. It's called Against the Current by Olivia Matthews, and it's a culinary cozy mystery. This is my first time reading a culinary cozy, unless you count the Savannah Bakery ones by, I'm missing her name, Bailey Cates, which I did like. It doesn't really go into the business of the bakery. It's more about the witches and the mystery and the romance subplot, so all sort of playing together. This one is about a young woman who is starting a bakery of West Indian foods with her family, especially Grenadian specialties, in Brooklyn. And someone dies and she's accused, and like all hell breaks loose, right? And so she investigates, and there is a lot of talk of the food that they make, and there's a couple recipes at the back for coconut bread for one, and what's the first one? I think it's a currant roll. Yeah, they talk a lot about the currant rolls, which are featured in the title. And it was cute. I don't think the writer's style is for me because the pacing was very self-conscious. Every chapter start had a mention of the day, and it was very micro slotted. So we didn't move very far. It was like later in the day. We had 3 different chapters in the same day. And so that sort of took me out of the story and slowed me down and made me feel like it was moving slow, even though the action was not. So also there was no romance. Like there were hints at a couple possibilities, but like no romance. So I sort of missed that. And the mystery, the bakery business side, I wasn't feeling as, it didn't feel as realistic as I would like. That's probably part of the genre and like fine for people who read a culinary cozy mystery. But yeah, the business stuff of like a family starting a bakery just got to me. And the fact that her parents do everything together, think everything the same. I wanted some differentiation there. But I love the great aunt. I love the cousin best friend. And like the running around Brooklyn and the kickboxing. That was cool too. That was a cool element. So lots of things going on in the novel. I'm sure lots of people would like have fun with this. So Olivia Matthews might be, there we go, a new author to try and see if you like, if you're a cozy mystery fan. That was other Black authors for February, but not a Black author either. And then I've got other readathons. So other readathons, I've got 2 books in this category because you might remember I'm reading for Climathon, which is climate books. I have a whole video on it that I think I did right before New Year's and a whole list of the prompts. So I finished finally Walking the Clouds. I got this a couple years ago as part of a was it? No, it wasn't Authortube because Bethan's not an Authortuber. I think it was a swap maybe. And Bethan sent me some lovely books, and this is one of them. It's an anthology of Indigenous science fiction edited by Grace L. Dillon. So it's kind of a big one, and there's lots of, oh yeah, look at that. So my system of like turning down corners at the top versus the bottom, that will show you like there's a lot to enjoy. It was more excerpts than it was short fiction. So the editor was a very strong presence, the editor introduced each of the pieces that they chose and explained why they chose them and pointed out pieces, the parts of the pieces that were showing a different aspect of Indigenous science fiction. And so it was kind of like a masterclass in reading Indigenous science fiction. I will say it's a little older. I think this is from 2013, 2012. And so there's probably a lot that has grown up about it since then, considering the climate of Indigenous science fiction. But I think that what it gives me is a better founding in the 90s and the 2000s of like the tropes or the assumptions and how some of the famous authors represented here were trying to combat that or subvert it. This is the first time I think I've read Sherman Alexie. He's the most famous name that I knew. And definitely, to be honest, a lot of the stuff is still over my head, but the editor's explanations and introductions really helped sort of explain some of those things and like tease a little bit of like what I was supposed to be seeing, even though a lot of it is like still over my head. But yeah, I got through that. And so that is a Climathon read because one of the prompts is read an Indigenous author. I think that's the only one. Nope. 2 prompts. What's the other one? Cli-fi, climate fiction. So most of the prompts are for nonfiction. These are fictional pieces, obviously, science fiction, both past and future. So that was pretty cool. And so 2 prompts for Climathon. So that was excellent work in January. And then another Climathon read is the overlay. So let me show you. This was an audiobook. We love Libro.fm for audiobooks. There we go. So I have actually read an audiobook from this person before. And so when she came up on Libro.fm, I was like, oh, interesting. The book is called The Sweetness of a Simple Life by Diana Beresford Kroger. Oh, I've been saying Diane. Apparently it's Diana. Okay. And it's nonfiction. I think the way I expected it to be at first got in the way of my enjoyment because the title does not really prepare you for what it presents. So the first book I read of hers was To Speak for the Trees, and it was basically a memoir of her early growing up, her education, and her advocacy for trees across the world as both a biomedical researcher and like a botanist, chemical botany researcher. I don't know what the name is. So she's basically someone who has combined the study of biochemistry and DNA in people with the study of botany and DNA in trees and plants more generally. And oh my goodness, I would love to get a tour of her garden outside Ottawa. It sounds amazing. And what this book is basically like a compilation of if she had a column in a newspaper or a blog where she wrote like a couple page essay every week. That is what it is compiled. So there's lots of essays that are about different topics, mainly the same subject, like what we find in the research, what you can do for your health, what she has done to find species and like interesting connections she's made across disciplines and cool stuff like that. So all very interesting, but presented in shorter essays that don't do what the last book did. So, and my friend asked about what's simple about it because it sounded very complicated when I explained what I was listening to. And she's right, because the sweetness of a simple life doesn't really prepare you for all these essays where she's talking about biochemical solutions and research into DNA and terpenes that are released in the aerosols of trees, like all these very interesting details. What she's basically saying is there are things going on that we are not aware of that could help us with our health. And we need to stop doing what is harming the system, creating those things, and get back to like community living and simple living in certain ways, and help people to find that. And so I don't think it was a very well-fitting, a suitable title, but the content is really interesting and valuable. So I definitely enjoyed listening to it. I didn't make too many notes because it was an audiobook and I was walking, but I did try to follow the scientific stuff and it was a little bit difficult. So really enjoyed that with those, caveats about what to expect. And that actually works for 3 prompts for Climathon. It's about plants, obviously, and it is by an activist, which is definitely an advocate for the trees, and it's about Earth. One of the coolest things I remember is that she found a species that had been believed to be extinct, but she was searching and searching for it. She found some person who had a lot of land in Texas, and they went out for several days over a period of time in a helicopter where she was in a harness. She's got to be like in her 70s at that point, looking for places where this tree might have survived. And I can't remember if it was the wafer ash or something different. That might be it. Anyway, she ends up finding it in one of these helicopter ride overs, and it's like a flash of whatever the color was. I don't remember. And then she hones in on it and theorizes that it must have been stuck at the edge of a glacier because it's backed up against a rock, like a cliff face, and had the right drainage and had just enough sun to survive like an ice age. And I was like, this is so crazy. This is so cool. So I love how like a botanist will be able to think about these things, whereas like, I don't know any of this, but I wish I did. So yeah, that was a really cool thing about the Earth and like the grand aspects of time, that like someone can actually see this and try to find a plant and save it from extinction and propagate it in her own garden. She's got a medicine garden for the North American continent, where she's got trees that are very rare, as well as like varieties of potatoes, and like it's just so cool. It's like life goals, when I live in a house with any bit of ground attached. So yeah, so Diana Beresford Kroger. So that's my other Readathons category. And then I was just going to say what is next up, but let me check in with the chat. Ooh. Okay. I know. I only have a limited amount of coffee cups. I only have a limited amount of space for coffee cups, so we've got the same mugs out all the time. That's just how it works here. It is. Huazontle is the fresh vegetable in dried form. It is a kind of amaranth, Aztec broccoli. That's so cool. It makes me think of the spice, which I know is a Mexican spice that people use for things here, which is epazote, which is hard to find. Or not a spice. It's like a parsley or a, yeah. Very cool. Sounds yummy. Shannon says, when I used to cook, I used ground amaranth and likes the flavor. Interesting. I think I've experimented with amaranth, and it's the tiniest seeds. And, when I made that lentil soup, I knocked over like 3 things. And so if I knocked over like a measuring cup of amaranth, I would be finding that for years. That would be a catastrophe. Oh, man, getting back into cooking, I need to be more aware. Cat Paw says, yes. Ooh, indigenous sci-fi. Nice. Emma's here to say, hey, and boop the like button. Thank you, Emma. Yes, Diana Beresford Kroger sounds awesome. Epazote. Got that. Yeah, exactly. I was just trying to remember the name and impress you with that. So the next up for the Black Authortuber Readathon, we've got the Reformatory, which I'll be listening to on audio, starting at the 21st. So I've got a bit of a break. Before that, I will be listening to my Patreon book club book, which is Rust in the Root by Justina Ireland, which is a young adult historical fantasy based in the 1930s. I'm very excited for that. And if you're curious about my Patreon book club, it's $8. And we read books every other month. And this was voted on in a poll. So I'm very excited to listen to that and discuss it with my folks. I also do book mail that is international. So if you want some bookish mail, that's $5. So reasonable, fun things to help support your local creators. So Rust in the Root, and then other Black authors for Black History Month. I've got another library book, Body and Soul Food by Abby Collette. This is another one that I volunteered in the poll. They didn't win, but I got anyway. And it's a culinary cozy, but might be more my style. I'm trying to find new authors that I jive with, right? That's going to be next up on the list. And one that I'm reading right now is I've been waiting forever for an opportunity to read Sharon C. Cooper and treat myself and buy an ebook. I finally did. It's called Love Under Contract, and even though it has a pregnancy subplot, I am really enjoying it. And sometimes when you read a romance and the banter or the conflict hits a little too close to home, the writer's doing something right because they're representing life so truly that you're like, oh God, that makes me nervous, or oh yeah, I feel that. So I was tweeting at her saying, oh God, too real, Sharon. But yeah, so I'm really enjoying that, and we'll talk about it in the next Wednesday wrap up. But yeah, that is my super whopper Wednesday wrap up today. And I don't know if you tracked how many books that was. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11. That's 11 minus the 2 that I'm not including because I'm going to do a research wrap up later. So look who's back on the saddle again. So excited about that. I'm feeling much better in February. So thank you for everyone in the community who is helping to make that happen and make me feel like I belong. That is a huge help. I have 2 things coming up to get on your radar, which is this Friday. I have a fireside chat. I did not know it was coming, but then it just slipped into place. I'm going to be hosting Leah Lindemann on Friday for some flash fiction. She has a book that just came out, which is historical fiction, World War II Canadian literature. So that will be fun to have her on the channel. And then next week, in that same Friday evening slot, we'll be doing another watch party. So Shannon will be on the channel, and we will be streaming Rachel Wright's presentation from last year on titling your story. So a little bit of Authortube content. And just to get people aware of the conference coming up in June, the Authortube Writing Conference that Shannon and I are busy preparing for. So those are the 2 things coming up. And yeah, what about you guys? Let's see. Catch up here. Shannon says, I have a ton on my TBR this month. It's 20 plus. Yes. So yeah, you're going to have to read fast. Even that is too fast for me. It's going to be hard because I think you're reading each day for the charmed chats and not being able to read the whole book because you need to sleep. But you're going to have a whole lot of books that are 2/3 done. It's going to be a mess at the end of the month, but hope it works out. I'm enjoying all your guests, and they're having lots of fun with your games. So really, really good job on that. Shannon says, there we go. I have a live charmed chat at the same time as your fireside chat. That's all right, because we will both be sprinting. So at some point, we'll have the opportunity to drop in if you want, or just watch it on replay. Cat Paw says, maybe you want to check out The Cooking Gene by Michael Twitty, Black History and Cooking. He is definitely on my radar. The Cooking Gene is a book sort of explaining what he does And he's also got a newer one that is a cookbook book, so more about the recipes, whereas the other one's like trade paperback, more text. And I've definitely eyed them several times. So just like Sharon, I'm waiting for like the opportunity where I can say, okay, you've unhauled 10 books, you can buy one that's like out of your research area. So yes, Sharon says, I'm reading each day for the charmed chats. I have finished a couple of them now. Yes, true about this printing. Exactly. Did we miss any? No. Okay. I can't remember it either. I can picture the cover and like the sort of cool asymmetrical font, and I can't remember the name either. But yeah, they're both on my list. He seems phenomenal and like a really good educator and like bringer together of people. So yeah, very excited about Michael Twitty. I could just like tease the research read. So another wrap up separately is going to be coming on with these books. And if you know, you know, these are interlibrary loan books. So you can't see the covers, and I can't show you the covers because it's at $50 damage fee if I take these little sleeves off. But yeah, wide, that's like really old, and these two are more recent. Research books about Irish immigrants in the 1800s and Scotland in the same period, dealing with abolition and how these sort of interacted. So that is what my current work is about, and I'm pretty excited about it. Oh, okay. All right. I think we're good. I've caught up on all my wrapped up books. And, oh, hi, Silky Slim. Will you list the books you mentioned here today in your thumbnail, please? I don't have room in the thumbnail, but I can list them in the description. So I've talked about all of them during the video, and I will list them out in the description below for people who want an easy way to find them. That's a great request. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for watching, everybody. And come back Friday night for the Fireside Chat with Leah. Thanks so much, and take care. Happy